Right, let's retrack one of our top stories today. DA leader Mmusi Maimane has crushed the EFF's proposal in the Nelson Mandela Bay Metro for a secret ballot vote in a motion of no confidence in Mayor Athol Trollip. The EFF has tabled the motion and it's expected to be debated in a special council meeting today before it collapsed. Well, the EFF has written to the Speaker requesting a secret ballot to be used during voting. For more analysis, we're now joined by political analyst Professor Dirk Kotze. Thank you very much for joining us and welcome to the programme. Not so long ago, it seemed as if that this vote of no confidence was going to happen and that perhaps the pendulum had swung with the EFF jumping ship, as it were. But by last night, it wasn't so clear just what was going to happen. What do you make of the outcome of today?
I think the main reason why this couldn't continue is the fact that two smaller parties, first the Patriotic Alliance and now later on the African Independent Congress, that they have changed their allegiances away from the ANC-EFF group to support the DA group, which meant that if you count all of the votes together, the DA group most possibly could have received 61 votes versus the 59 of the opposition parties, the ANC and the EFF and the UDM and others. Now, given that, it therefore became clear that the opposition's motion of no confidence will most possibly be defeated. And I think that is the main motivation why the EFF ultimately made it almost impossible for the meeting to continue. It was called off. They tried to restart it again. The DA, for the reason that it could receive the majority, tried to continue with the council meeting as much as possible, but couldn't succeed. And I think what we have seen now is that most possibly as a result of that, the motion of no confidence won't continue because of the knowledge that it will most possibly fail.
So you're saying that the EFF deliberately disrupted the proceedings today because they feared a loss?
If in the end, I think that you can argue like that. The main reason is that they say that the Speaker interfered with the procedures because there was not only one motion of no confidence, but there were 6 motions supposed to be tabled. And the first one should have been that of the Speaker himself. And he didn't want to let it be tabled, so they objected to that. So strictly speaking, it is a procedural problem that they raised. But in the end, I think it is about the balance of power, the balance of forces within the council at this stage. And I think what the opposition wants to avoid is a situation where they were actually defeated. I think they're at the same time trying to buy time and I think that the strategy will most possibly is to go back to some of these smaller parties, especially the African Independent Congress, which is in coalition with the ANC in Ekurhuleni, in Rustenburg, and also now was part of this group in Nelson Mandela Bay. So it means that if the African Independent Congress is breaking ranks with the ANC, it can also affect those coalition governments, most notably the one in Ekurhuleni. So it is a serious matter for the ANC, and my expectation is that they want to use this extra time in order to put a lot of pressure on, first of all, the African Independent Congress, but most possibly even on the Patriotic Alliance, to change their positions again.
Do you think that there's been a sufficient shift post-Nasrec within the ANC and how it's perceived by voters on the ground there, that perhaps that the ANC could start re-emerging? I know that Head of Elections, Fikile Mbalula, says that a fresh mandate is required for the Nelson Mandela Bay Metro. Is this a confidence that maybe under Cyril Ramaphosa they might get a different result if they were to do a rerun, and that maybe some of these smaller parties may be brought around if they fly the Ramaphosa flag, as it were?
Well, that is certainly a possibility, I think, but at the same time, the fact that the DA is also in a position of trying to establish a coalition, now a new coalition, means that these small parties will have representation on a DA-led local government. So there's attraction from both sides. There's the possibility for motivation on both sides to be able to join the bigger coalition group. So both the ANC and the DA is in that position. However, the ANC's dilemma is that it can't form a coalition only of small parties. It has to involve also the EFF. And that is not necessarily the situation for the DA. The EFF has, the ANC has 50 councillors or seats, and they need 60 or 61. The smaller parties don't bring them close to the 61, so they need the 6 seats of the EFF. And that creates the dilemma, I think, which is very difficult to resolve, because the EFF does not want at this stage to become part of a coalition government. They don't want to become part of the executive or at local level the mayor's committee. So it means that they can cooperate with a party like the DA's coalition in Tshwane or in Johannesburg and participate in important decisions, like, for example, the adoption of a budget. But they don't become part of the executive. They don't take executive responsibility. And I think that is the dilemma for the ANC, is that unavoidably they need the EFF to become part of the government in order to take over the Nelson Mandela Bay.
Right,
and given the situation at the moment, both the ANC as well as the EFF don't want to put forward a candidate as mayor. And that in itself is an indication that it's exceptionally difficult to position themselves with respect to a new government in Nelson Mandela Bay.
All right, we've run out of time, but very briefly, if you can answer this question, what does this mean for the EFF? Because they're seen now as the party that was anti-ANC, but are willing to go into bed with the ANC, and they seem to be changing their mind about things. Is that going to be a problem for them? Is it going to erode some of their political capital, or have they got the story ready enough for the voters?
Well, I think it's not necessarily going to change those who support the EFFs to change their sentiment. I think what Julius Malema last night in a rally in Port Elizabeth was saying, is going to make sure that in the end Ethel Trollop will be removed from his position, if not now, then later in any case. So I think he reserved some space for himself in order to do it at a later stage. But for the moment now, the EFF's initiative, and they made a lot of it about, has actually failed in Port Elizabeth or Nelson Mandela Bay.
All right, Professor Dirk Kotze, we're going to leave it there. Thank you very much indeed for sharing your insights with us this day.